Okay, so let's talk about installing MariaDB on our Ubuntu server. Now, I'm not going to go real deep into MariaDB. I'm just going to go through the installation and the initial configuration, and then the actual management of MariaDB and setting up users and permissions and creating databases and things like that are things that we'd touch on in another course. So just so you can see how we install MariaDB, let me also let you know that MariaDB is actually a fork of MySQL. And that's going to come into play here in just a second. So I'm going to start by installing the software. So it's sudo apt install MariaDB-DB-server. And that'll install our MariaDB server for us. Now, this just gives the initial server installation. We're going to have some initial configuration that we need to do before we set up our actual databases and whatever else we're going to do with our MariaDB server. So, we're just about done with our initial install. Here we go. And then we're going to do an initial configuration. Actually, let me real quick. Let's do a systemctl and look at the status of MariaDB. And it shows that we are actually active and running and everything looks good. And cool. So we have MariaDB up and running. Now, at this point, there's absolutely no configuration on it. So there is an initial configuration script that we're going to want to run when we install MariaDB. And it's this. It's mysql _secure secure secure underscore installation. Now remember I said MariaDB is a fork of MySQL, and this is where we can see that. So even though we're doing MariaDB, we're still using the MySQL secure installation script. Okay. We'll enter the current password for the root user. Note, if you've just installed MariaDB and haven't set a root password yet, you should just press enter here. So we're not configuring a root password here. So I'm just going to hit enter. So we have the option to select a Unix socket authentication. So setting the root password or using users Unix socket authentication ensures nobody can log in to the MariaDB root without proper authorization. You already have your account password protected, so you can safely answer no. All right, do I want to change my root password? And this is where I can set my root password for the server. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my little default demo password. Now, by default, MariaDB has an anonymous user, allowing anyone to log into it without having a user account. This is something set up for testing. So in real life, we'd want to make that go away. So yes, we want to remove anonymous users. Normally, root should be allowed to connect only from localhost. And the idea here is you don't want somebody connecting remotely to your DB server and trying to guess the root password. So by only allowing root access from localhost, that means anyone who's connecting remotely, if they try to guess the root password, they're hitting nothing because the root account is not allowed access remotely. That's what that is about. Root can still log in locally, which is great because you're going to use that when you're doing a lot of local admin. But what this means is if you want to do remote admin, you need to create another user that has full admin permissions. So I'm going to go ahead and disallow root login in remotely. We have a default database on here that's used just for testing. It doesn't actually hurt anything, but in a production environment, we don't need it, so we would make it go away. If we're using this for testing, for learning MariaDB, then we can go ahead and leave it. So I'm going to say no. Let's go ahead and leave that test environment. And then reloading the privilege tables will apply all of our current changes. Okay, there we go. MariaDB is now up and running. Now we can connect to it using sudo MariaDB, and this connects us. Welcome to the MariaDB monitor. Your MariaDB connection version is blah, blah, blah. and that gets us in. And go ahead and exit. The other way we can access MariaDB, so sudo MariaDB took us into root, so we can also do MariaDB, and we're going to do -u is going to specify the user, and I want to do root, and hit enter, and that lets me in as well. Now, if I'm trying to do this remotely, then that's actually going to be blocked for us. So there we go. MariaDB is up and running and ready to be configured. And like I said, we're not going to go deep into the configuration of it. I just wanted to show you how to do that initial database install and that initial configuration script. So now you have something where you can start actually working with your database server.